Have you ever caught yourself talking to your dog, like their family, telling them about your day, whispering secrets, or asking if they're hungry again, even though dinner just ended? And then they tilt their head, ears perked, eyes locked on you, as if they understand more than you expect. In that instant, you wonder, what do they really think when they hear my voice? Science has something fascinating to say, and what you're about to learn may forever change the way you speak to your dog. Because for them, your voice isn't just sound, it's rhythm, energy, and emotion that paints the atmosphere of their world. So, let's begin with the very first question. When you speak, what does your dog truly hear? When you speak to your dog, they don't hear words the way we do. They don't sit there breaking down syllables or remembering vocabulary. What they hear is something far deeper: your tone, your rhythm, the rise and fall of your breath. Imagine standing by a river watching the ripples glide past. That's your voice to your dog. Not language, but a current of feeling flowing straight into their world. And here's the fascinating part. In a study published in Science in 2016, researchers found that dogs process human speech in a surprisingly similar way to us. They use the left side of their brain for words and the right side for intonation. But unlike us, they lean heavily on the music of your voice, the warmth, the stress, the joy, or the tension hidden inside every phrase. That means when you whisper, "good boy," in a gentle tone, their brain lights up with reward. But say the very same words flatly, and the meaning disappears. Number 2. Why dogs recognize certain words. It almost feels like magic, doesn't it? You call your dog's name across the room, and their ears perk up instantly. You say walk or treat, and suddenly their whole body shifts with excitement. But how is that possible if, as we just learned, dogs don't truly understand language? The truth is, they're not memorizing words the way we do. What they're doing is something scientists call associative learning. In a famous study from the University of Leipzig, a border collie named Rico was able to recognize over 200 words, not because he spoke our language, but because he had linked specific sounds to specific experiences. Rico ball meant joy, play, movement. Rico sit meant calmness, focus, reward. Your dog is doing the exact same thing every single day. But here's the part that matters most. When your dog learns a word from you, it's not just a command, it's a piece of shared history. Every time you repeat that sound with love, you're writing it into their memory, stitching it together with the rhythm of your footsteps, the smell of your clothes, even the time of day it usually happens. To them, your words are more like photographs, snapshots of moments you've created together. And that's why a simple word like home or buddy can feel so powerful. It's not just the sound. It's the hundreds of times that sound has carried comfort, safety, or joy. For your dog, those words become part of their emotional map, guiding them back to you even in moments of uncertainty. But if words are only fragments of a bigger picture, then what truly speaks the loudest? What is the real language your dog listens to above all else? The answer isn't in your vocabulary. It's in something far more ancient, something they've carried from the wild into your living room. And that's where we go next. To your dog, your voice is weather. A calm, soft breeze means safety. A sudden storm of anger, even if it isn't aimed at them, sends their heart racing. That's why many dogs leave the room when voices are raised, not because they understand the argument, but because they feel the thunder in the air. And once they've learned your weather, they remember it. Dogs like us carry long-term emotional memories. They store the feeling of your tone, the comfort of your laughter, the rhythm of the way you call their name. Over time, those patterns become anchors. Your voice isn't just sound anymore. It's home. But if that's true, if dogs don't truly care about the words, then why do some seem to know their names or commands, like sit and stay? The answer lies in a secret far more beautiful than obedience, and that's what we're about to uncover. Number 3. The real language of dogs. If words are only fragments, then what truly matters to your dog? The answer is older than language itself. Long before dogs slept on our couches, their ancestors lived in packs where survival depended not on words, but on signals, tone, posture, rhythm, and energy. That is the language your dog still carries inside them today. When you speak, your dog doesn't just listen with their ears. They read your entire being. A change in your tone, a sigh in the middle of a sentence, even the way your shoulders rise when you're tense, it all becomes a message. In fact, researchers at Eötvös-Loránd University in Hungary used brain imaging to show that dogs' auditory cortex lights up not just for sounds, but for emotional intonation. Simply put, they feel your mood in your voice before they even decode the sound itself. Think about that. Your dog doesn't just hear you say, "It's okay." They hear the tremble in your breath, they feel whether your body is relaxed or heavy. They sense if your tone carries calmness or worry. To them, your voice is not just communication, it's climate. A steady, warm breeze means safety. A sudden storm, even if it isn't aimed at them, can send them into hiding. And here is where the connection becomes truly intimate. Over time, your dog builds an emotional map of you. They memorize the way you open a door, the rhythm of your steps in the hallway, the softness or sharpness in your tone when you arrive home. To them, these patterns are not small details. They are the architecture of their world. But if your dog is mapping you so carefully, then what happens when you break the pattern? What do they feel when your voice shifts in ways they don't expect? That answer reveals something extraordinary, something that explains why dogs are often the first to notice when something is wrong with you, even before you admit it yourself. Number 4. When dogs sense. What we cannot say. There are moments when your dog knows before you do. You may think you've hidden the stress of a long day or tried to keep quiet about the sadness you carry, but your dog has already noticed. They see it in the way your shoulders slump, hear it in the way your tone drops half a note lower, smell it in the subtle shifts of your body chemistry. Science confirms what so many dog owners have felt. In 2022, researchers at Queen's University Belfast discovered that dogs can detect human stress simply through smell. Cortisol, the hormone released when we're anxious, actually changes the scent of our breath and sweat. Dogs in the study correctly identified stress samples with astonishing accuracy, proof that they don't just sense our moods, they quite literally smell our emotions. But beyond the science, there's the lived truth. Ask anyone who has sat in silence with a dog after a loss, or cried quietly while their dog rested a head on their knee. These animals aren't trained therapists. They're companions who step into the space between your words, filling it with presence. They don't ask what's wrong. They don't try to fix it. They just stay. And in that stillness, something shifts. You feel less alone, because someone has noticed what even you tried to hide. And here's the remarkable part. The more history you share with your dog, the more precise their attunement becomes. They remember your ordinary rhythm, so when you break it, they know instantly. A sigh, where there should have been a smile. Silence, where there should have been a laugh. Your dog marks those changes like storm clouds on the horizon. But what happens when their quiet loyalty moves beyond sensing emotions, when it becomes action, when they start to answer you in ways too subtle for words? That's where the bond between human and dog takes on a dimension most people never realize until it happens to them. Number 5. When dogs answer without words. It may surprise you, But your dog has been answering you all along. You just may not have noticed. Their language is subtle, ancient, woven into gestures that carry more weight than any word ever could. A gentle head pressed against your leg, a paw resting quietly on your arm, a long gaze followed by a slow blink. These are not random acts. They are replies. Science has begun to unravel this mystery. In 2015, a study published in Science showed that dogs and humans share an oxytocin feedback loop, the very same hormone cycle that bonds mothers to their infants. When a dog gazes into your eyes, oxytocin levels rise in both of you. That means your dog's quiet stare isn't just affection, it is a biochemical conversation, a physiological "I love you" that echoes inside your body as well as theirs. But beyond the numbers, there is something profoundly human in the way dogs choose their moments. They don't answer with chatter. They answer with presence. A lean against your side when you're overwhelmed. A playful nudge when your laughter is missing. A silent curl at your feet on the night you couldn't sleep. Each act is a sentence in a language that doesn't need sound to be heard. And this is where the relationship deepens. Because once you realize your dog is not just receiving your emotions, but reflecting them back, you begin to understand you are not the only one speaking in this bond. Your dog has been carrying half the dialogue all along. But here's the question few people ever stop to ask if dogs can answer us so faithfully without words. What else have they been trying to say? What silent truths live inside those gestures we take for granted? The next part may change the way you look at every tilt of their head, every brush of fur against your skin. Number 6. The silent messages of the body. If you really want to know what your dog is telling you, you need to look where no words exist, into the silence of their body. Dogs are masters of physical language. A slow blink, a sigh that escapes while they rest near you, the way their body presses just close enough to touch yours without asking for more. Each of these is a message spoken in the quietest of tones. Science supports what dog lovers have always felt. A 2018 study in the Journal of Veterinary Behavior showed that subtle body cues like ear position, tail movement, and even breathing patterns are primary ways dogs communicate emotional states to humans. To an untrained eye, it may look like nothing. But to your dog, these tiny shifts are their vocabulary, a silent dictionary they use to keep you close. Think of the times your dog has stretched out beside you, exhaling deeply, only once you've sat down. That's not coincidence, that's relief. Or the nights they curl tightly against your ribs, syncing their breathing to yours. That's not instinct alone. That's alignment. It's their way of telling you, I feel what you feel, and I'm here to hold it with you. And here is the breathtaking truth. Dogs have learned to weave their emotions into the smallest details of daily life details we often overlook. A paw shifted closer during your silence. A head tilt when your voice breaks. A tail wag not of excitement, but of reassurance. Every one of these is an answer in the dialogue they've been having with you all along. But here's the question that lingers. If their body can speak such a rich language, then what happens when you finally learn to listen? What new depth of love and understanding waits on the other side of that silence? That's the door we're about to open. Number 7. When you learn to listen. Something extraordinary happens when you stop talking at your dog and begin listening to them. The bond shifts. What was once one-sided becomes a duet, a rhythm you both share without effort. Suddenly, you don't just see their wagging tail, you notice the tempo of it. You don't just hear their sigh, you feel the weight it carries. In that moment, you realize you've stepped into their world. Science has a word for this attunement. In psychology, Attunement means the ability to sense and respond to another's emotional state in real time. A 2020 study in animal cognition found that dogs not only read human emotions, but that humans who actively respond to canine cues build stronger, more secure attachments with their pets. It's not a theory, it's measurable. The more you listen, the deeper the trust becomes. And here's the miracle. When you start to mirror their subtle cues, slowing your breath when they settle beside you, softening your voice when they lean into your hand, you're not just comforting them. You're speaking their language back. For your dog, that recognition is everything. It tells them you see me, you feel me, you understand me. This is where love between human and dog moves beyond companionship. It becomes resonance, like two instruments vibrating to the same note. You don't need words. You don't need commands. You only need presence. And in that quiet, something grows that science can measure, but never fully explain, a bond that heals both hearts. But if listening back creates such profound connection, then the question becomes, how far can this silent dialogue go? Can dogs carry our memories, our moods, even our unspoken fears within them? The next chapter takes us closer to that mystery. Number 8. The emotional memory. Dogs do not keep diaries, and they don't replay memories the way we do. But they do something even more powerful. They store feelings. Every moment with you, your laughter echoing through the kitchen, the rhythm of your footsteps at the door, the softness of your voice when you whisper their name becomes etched into what scientists call associative long-term memory. A 2016 study in Current Biology showed that dogs have a memory system similar to ours called episodic-like memory. That means they don't just recall routines, they can remember specific experiences and the emotions tied to them. For your dog, it isn't only what happened, it's how it felt when it happened with you. That's why a single phrase, or even the jingling of your keys, can spark a flood of recognition, pulling them back into a moment they once lived by your side. And this is why your dog runs to greet you, not because of the word hello, but because of the thousands of times your return has meant safety, warmth, belonging. Your presence is their landmark. Your voice is their compass. To them, memory is not about the past. It's a living map of comfort that always leads back to you. But here's where it becomes even more profound. Because if your dog carries your voice, your habits, and your moods inside their memory, then they also carry your absences, your silences, your changes. They remember when the house felt heavy, when your tone was strained, when you lingered too long in sadness. And they don't forget. They fold those pieces into their emotional world, quietly adjusting to hold space for you. And this raises a haunting question. If dogs carry our emotional imprints so deeply, could it be that they are not just remembering us, but carrying part of who we are within them? The answer may change the way you look at your dog's loyalty forever. Number 9. The loyalty that outlives time. When people speak of dogs, they often say one word above all others: loyalty. But loyalty is too small a word for what truly happens. Because what your dog offers isn't blind devotion, it's memory woven with emotion, carried forward day after day, year after year. Science helps us understand why this bond feels so eternal. In 2019, researchers at Kyoto University discovered that dogs not only remember interactions, but they also evaluate fairness and trust. They remember who treated them with kindness, who honored their presence, and who didn't. Their loyalty is not automatic. It is chosen, reinforced with every shared heartbeat, every quiet evening together, every whispered word they hold inside them like a secret. And that's why stories of dogs waiting at train stations or refusing to leave the bed of a sick owner are not myths, they are echoes of something deeply real. Your dog is not simply staying because they must. They are staying because your presence has become the architecture of their world, and to abandon it would be like tearing the ground out from beneath their paws. But here is where it becomes almost mystical. Dogs seem to carry our essence beyond the moment. Ask anyone who has lost a beloved pet, and they'll tell you how the house feels different, quieter, as though a part of themselves has gone with the dog. That's not imagination. It's the proof of how completely these animals mirror us, hold us, and in some ineffable way keep a part of us alive in them. And it leads us to one final breathtaking question. If dogs can hold our love, our moods, even our silences so faithfully, then are they not only companions in life, but keepers of our story long after we're gone. Number 10. Dogs as guardians of our legacy. There is something haunting and beautiful about the way dogs seem to carry us within them. They don't just walk beside us in life, they hold pieces of our story, fragments of our emotions, echoes of our laughter and our grief. In a way, they become living archives of who we are when no one else is watching. Science gives us a glimpse into why this feels so true. A 2021 study in Scientific Reports found that dogs can recall emotional events tied to their owners even after long periods of time, responding more strongly to voices and faces connected with past experiences. What this means is simple yet profound. Your dog is not only recognizing you in the present, but also carrying the emotional residue of every moment you've shared. Think of it when your dog waits faithfully by the door. It isn't just today they're waiting for. It's the memory of yesterday's return, the hundreds of evenings when your footsteps meant safety and warmth. When they curl up in your empty chair after you've left the room, it isn't habit, it's remembrance. They are holding the space you once filled, as though keeping it alive until you return. And this is why, for so many people, the loss of a dog feels like losing a witness. Because they weren't just pets. They were keepers of your secrets, your routines, your quiet joys and unspoken sorrows. They were the only ones who knew the rhythm of your days as intimately as you did. But here is the question that lingers long after. If dogs can hold our legacy with such purity, what do we hold for them in return? How do we honor the depth of their silent devotion once we finally understand the weight of what they've been carrying for us all along? So how do we honor a devotion that has no words, no conditions, no end? We honor it by noticing, by listening when they speak in silence, by answering their quiet loyalty with gentleness, patience, and love. Every slow blink, every sigh at your feet, every moment they wait by the door is not just habit. It is their way of saying, "You are my world." And perhaps the greatest gift we can give back is presence. To look into their eyes and let them know we see them, we feel them, we remember too. Because at the end of the day, your dog doesn't need perfect words or endless praise. They need you, your tone, your warmth, your hand, resting softly against theirs. That is the legacy you leave inside them. If this touched your heart, take a moment to share your story in the comments. Tell us about the time your dog spoke to you without a word, because your memory may help someone else see what they've been missing all along. And if you want to keep exploring the hidden language between humans and dogs, don't forget to subscribe. Not for me, not for this channel, but for the bond you share with your dog. A bond worth celebrating, protecting, and deepening every single day.